I stopped trying to force my appetite into submission and started working with a hormone my body already makes. That single shift changed how food, fullness, and cravings felt after 50. Your timeline won't match mine. Hormones shift at different speeds for every woman. But the mechanism behind it is the same for all of us. And once you understand it, the constant hunger of midlife starts to make a lot more sense. There's a hormone called GLP-1. You've probably heard the name attached to injections and prescriptions. But GLP-1 isn't a drug. It's a hormone your gut has been producing your entire life, every single time you eat. Its job is simple. It tells your pancreas to release insulin at the right moment. It slows down how fast food leaves your stomach. And it sends a signal straight to your brain that says you've had enough. Quiet, isn't it, that something this powerful has been running in the background this whole time, with almost nobody explaining what it actually does. So why does that signal feel weaker after 50? Here's where most explanations get lazy. Less discipline, more cravings. An aging metabolism you're just supposed to accept. That framing puts the blame on you, and it isn't accurate. There's a physiological reason your fullness signal changed, and it has almost nothing to do with willpower. Estrogen and this appetite hormone are more connected than most people realize. Research on estradiol, the main form of estrogen circulating in your body, shows it directly stimulates the cells lining your intestine that produce GLP-1. Those cells are called L cells. Every time nutrients pass through your gut, they release GLP-1 into your bloodstream. When estrogen is abundant, that release runs efficiently. When estrogen declines during the menopause transition, that natural production slows down. Less estrogen circulating simply means less of your own fullness hormone reaching your body after a meal. That's fact one, and it's already a meaningful piece of the puzzle. But it's only half the picture. Here's the part almost nobody explains, and it's the part that reframes everything. It's not only about how much GLP-1 your gut produces. It's about how well your brain is listening to it once it arrives. Estrogen doesn't just support production. Animal research suggests it also sharpens your brain's sensitivity to the signal itself. In studies where estrogen was present, the appetite-suppressing effect of GLP-1 was noticeably stronger. Take the estrogen away, and the exact same amount of hormone produces a weaker response in the hypothalamus, the part of your brain responsible for regulating hunger and fullness. Sit with that for a second. It means two separate things are happening to you at once after 50, not one. Your body is quietly producing less of its own fullness hormone, and the brain regions built to respond to it aren't hearing it as clearly as they used to, even when the hormone is present. That's the twist that changes how you think about the problem. It was never simply about eating less. It was about a signaling system running on a weaker connection at both ends, production and reception. This is where a lot of women start looking at a prescription. And for some, that's a legitimate conversation to have with a doctor. Nothing about that path is wrong. But there's a separate question worth asking first. One that gets skipped far too often. If your gut still makes this hormone every time you eat, just less efficiently than it used to, can you support that natural production through what and how you eat? The research says yes, to a meaningful and measurable degree. Protein is one of the strongest natural triggers available to you. Specific amino acids, leucine, arginine, glutamine, act directly on the L cells lining your intestine, prompting them to release GLP-1 into your bloodstream. Whey protein in particular has been studied closely for this. In one clinical trial, a whey protein preload before a meal significantly increased GLP-1 and a related satiety hormone called PYY, while measurably lowering hunger ratings afterward compared to a plain carbohydrate control. That's not a supplement company's marketing claim. That's a documented hormonal response tied to a specific type of food measured in real participants. Fiber works through a different but connected pathway, and this is where it gets interesting. Fermentable fibers, the kind found in foods like onions, garlic, leeks, chicory root, asparagus, and cooked and cooled potatoes or rice, travel down into your colon largely undigested. There, the bacteria living in your gut ferment them, producing compounds called short-chain fatty acids. One of those, called butyrate, directly stimulates GLP-1 release from the very same L cells that estrogen supports. It's a second entry point into the identical signaling system, working through your gut bacteria instead of through your hormones directly. Put protein and fermentable fiber in the same meal, and you're triggering GLP-1 release through two separate mechanisms at once. You're not manufacturing something artificial. You're simply giving a system that already exists inside you more raw material to work with. What does that actually look like on a plate? Think Greek yogurt with ground flax and berries instead of a bowl of cereal. Think eggs scrambled with sautéed onions and leeks instead of a plain bagel and jam. Think a piece of salmon or chicken alongside lentils, or a cooled and reheated portion of rice or potatoes. The cooling process converts part of that starch into a resistant form your gut bacteria can ferment. The same way, chilling a cooked potato overnight changes how your body processes it the next day. None of this requires counting a single number. It requires pairing the right foods together at the same meal, consistently. So the signal has something to respond to. There's a caution worth sitting with here too, because this isn't about restriction. And restriction can quietly work against everything we've just covered. Chronically undereating, especially undereating protein, is one of the worst things you can do in these particular years. After 50, your body is already losing muscle mass at an accelerated rate as estrogen declines. A process with its own name, sarcopenia. Muscle is metabolically active tissue. It's part of what keeps your resting metabolism from sliding lower than it needs to. Cut calories aggressively without enough protein, and you risk losing the very tissue that's protecting your metabolism, while doing nothing to fix the actual signaling problem underneath. So the goal was never to eat less. It's to eat in a way that gives your existing hormonal signals something real to respond to. Sleep matters here as well, more than most people expect it to. Hot flashes and night waking don't just leave you tired the next morning. They disrupt ghrelin and leptin, the two hormones that work alongside GLP-1 to regulate hunger and fullness together, almost as a team. A single short night doesn't just cost you energy. It can shift how hungry you feel the following day, and how satisfied a normal-sized meal actually leaves you feeling. 3 or 4 disrupted nights in a row, and that team of hormones starts sending mixed signals almost constantly. Movement plays a supporting role too, though it's a smaller piece than most people assume. Regular movement, especially the kind that maintains muscle. Walking with some resistance work layered in, helps preserve the lean tissue that's already under pressure from declining estrogen. It won't replace what protein and fiber are doing at the hormonal level, but it protects the metabolic foundation those hormones are operating on top of. It's worth zooming out here, because this hormone doesn't operate in isolation. Declining estrogen is linked to a few shifts that tend to show up around the same time, not just one. Your cells can respond less efficiently to the insulin your body releases after a meal. And fat storage tends to redistribute toward the visceral depot, the deeper fat that sits around your organs rather than just under your skin, even when your weight on the scale hasn't changed much. That kind of visceral fat is itself associated with a higher risk of insulin resistance, so the two tend to reinforce each other over time. GLP-1 sits inside that same picture too, since it's one of the hormones your body uses to trigger insulin release after a meal. When its signaling runs weaker, blood sugar regulation may become a little less efficient as well. One more thread connected to the same hormonal shift. None of these systems work in isolation. They're all reading from the same hormonal script, and estrogen is one of the lead characters in that script. That's also why a food-first approach tends to help more broadly than people expect, beyond just appetite. When you're consistently pairing protein with fermentable fiber, you're not only nudging GLP-1 upward, you're also slowing the rate at which glucose enters your bloodstream, which reduces the size of the insulin spike that follows. Smaller spikes, over time, are associated with better long-term blood sugar regulation. It's the same meal, doing double duty on two connected hormonal systems at once. None of this is a reason to avoid a conversation with your doctor if you're already considering a prescription option, and none of it is a claim that food alone will produce the same results as medication for every woman. Bodies respond differently, and some women will need more support than diet and sleep can provide on their own. This is simply the piece of the picture that tends to get left out of that conversation entirely. The fact that your body already has a version of this system running, and that version responds to specific, well-studied inputs, whether or not you ever add a prescription into the mix. A few practical anchors, if you want somewhere to start this week. Front-load protein at breakfast, rather than saving most of it for dinner. Your L cells get a chance to respond earlier in the day, and it tends to carry your fullness signal through the hours that used to feel hardest. Keep a fermentable fiber source on the plate at your 2 biggest meals, not just at dinner. And treat sleep as part of the metabolic plan, not something separate from it. The same way you treat a meal or a workout. Small, repeatable choices, not a program to follow perfectly. So where does that leave you practically? Not with a prescription decision you need to make today, and not with a rigid diet to follow perfectly starting tomorrow morning. Just with a clearer picture of what's actually happening inside your body. Your natural fullness hormone is still there. It's still functional. It's simply running on lower estrogen support than it used to, on both the production side and the brain sensitivity side. Feed it the specific building blocks it responds to. Protein with real amino acid density, fermentable fiber at the same meal, and consistent enough sleep to keep the surrounding hormones cooperating. And you're not fighting your biology after 50. You're giving a system that already exists inside you the support it's been quietly missing. That's the shift that changed things for me. Not a new rule to memorize, and not a number to chase. Just a new understanding of a hormone that had been working in the background the entire time. And finally, learning what it actually needed from me to work well again.